Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to create a virtual machine on UpCloud with Terraform, Makefiles, and a bit of Python coding. Alright, so let's have a look at the checklist for today. We need an UpCloud sub-account. Of course, we need an UpCloud account, but then in there, if you go on the left panel and check on people and add a new sub account, you'll then be able to export these environment variables for an UpCloud username, which is the sub account username detail, and then an UpCloud password. For generating passwords, I recommend using these commands, but it's up to you. Whatever works for you, that's fine. Okay, so this tutorial is about become comfortable also with Makefiles. So we created this Makefile target, which we're gonna look into in a moment, to clean up our environment. So Terraform works with state files. There's a Terraform binary command that we need to install. Also, we're gonna generate SSH keys for the private and public key pair. So with this target, we're gonna clean up all of this to start from a from the first with a completely new environment. Then we're going to generate a key pair of SSH keys, so private and public key for the root user, which is the default user for an UpCloud virtual machine with Linux. And we're gonna see that these key pairs are gonna be referenced from the Terraform source code. Then we're going to install our Terraform command, initialize our Terraform project starting from our Terraform source code, invoke Terraform plan, which is the way you see in Terraform what you're gonna deploy, and then invoke Terraform Apply, which is the way we generate this infrastructure on the UpCloud environment. Don't worry if you don't understand this. We're gonna see all these targets in a moment. We're gonna see all the commands we're gonna invoke. And by the way, all this code is on GitHub, so if you need to check anything, you can always go back here and check the details of all this code. All right, so assuming we've created all this infrastructure, then we can have a look briefly at how we could use the UpCloud SDK for Python to inspect this running infrastructure. So we're gonna install our UpCloud SDK for Python, and then we're gonna invoke our script that we have here. We're gonna see later to check what are the current servers running on our UpCloud environment and what's the status of these servers and a few details. Once Terraform has deployed our new virtual machine on UpCloud, then we're gonna need to make a note of the current IP address for this virtual machine, because we're gonna need this IP address to be able to perform the SSH connection to the server. So we're gonna export this into an environment variable, and then we're gonna connect via SSH into this running virtual machine on UpCloud. So we're gonna see how we fix potential issues with the permissions on these SSH keys, especially the private key. And then we're gonna perform the SSH command to log into our remote virtual machine. As I said before, don't worry too much about if you don't understand this syntax. All this code is on this GitHub URL, and you can check it later, but we're gonna check it in a moment, and we're gonna see what's the actual command that is invoked under the hood. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Let's assume you have exported your credentials as environment variables, so we can invoke make clean just to get used to how makefiles work. So we invoke make clean, and this works because in the current directory we have this makefile called makefile. We include some other makefiles from the subdirectory mk, and then we invoke this makefile target. This is about bash commands. Here there's a bit of logging, and basically this log prefix, this yell are all makefile variables defined in this vars.mk that we are importing here. It's nothing fancy, it's the echo command, and if we check the content of these variables, you can see that the log prefix is printing a timestamp with the cyano color, and then is printing some sort of prefix that relates to this project called UpCloud VM in red, and then whatever comes after is printed in yellow. So as you can see here, we are removing whatever key pair of private and public keys we have for SSH, for our root user and our admin user that we're going to see in another video. And then we're going to clean our Terraform state, and basically we're going to clean up our binary command for Terraform that we install locally. We're going to clean up our Terraform directory containing all the Terraform details for the provider for UpCloud, our log file, and our state files. We're gonna look into this in a moment, so let's leave it there for now. Eventually you're gonna see another echo command printing done in green, so we know that this clean target was successful. So let's invoke this. All right, so as you can see here, this is the sort of logging. We are cleaning all our SSH private public keys, and then we're cleaning all the Terraform stuff, and then we see done as stated here, so all good. A couple of things about makefiles. If you see an at character in front of a command, that's gonna remove the command printed to the output. So basically you're not gonna see echo blah blah blah, but you're just gonna see the output of the echo command. And if you see this dash in front of a command, that means the make command can ignore the fact that this command may have thrown an error to the standard error, and this is because maybe these files are not there, so if we try to clean them, they're not there, and then maybe there's an issue with the touch command that is gonna generate placeholders for these files, and this is just for documentation purposes, so we can push something to GitHub, basically empty files. And you see here this dash, so if the Terraform command is not there, this is not gonna throw any error, and basically we are able to run all these commands and don't block halfway just because something is not there, and then some commands throw errors. And by the way, these commands don't have an at here, so you can see them in the standard output. Here, for example, we're removing the Terraform command. All right, so let's go back to our checklist. So we start from a fresh environment, clean up everything. Now we can generate a private public key pair for SSH, because we're gonna need this for our root user in our Terraform source code. So let's go ahead and look what's inside this target in SSH. Okay, sorry, one other thing. So as you can see here, the make file is importing this ssh.mk that is in the mk subdirectory. So here, mk subdirectory, we see this file, and we need to check this target. So ssh generate key pair root. As usual, you see some logging. We list all the files in the configuration directory, and this is a configuration directory defined in our variables file. So is the current directory conf /conf. We see that we remove whatever root certificate is there, so private and public key if it's there. And then we invoke the ssh-keygen command to generate a key, a private public key pair without asking us anything on the prompt. So in an automatic way, we're using this encryption algorithm, and then we're gonna print to the standard output the public key just for reference as some sort of test that this worked. So let's go ahead and do this. Make ssh generate key pair for the root user. All right, as you can see here, we invoke the ssh-keygen command with these parameters. Is the same as this one defined in the target for the make file. And then let's check the public key we printed in the output, the standard output, and here you can see that we are printing the public key for our root user. Okay, so let's move on to Terraform. Now let's open our terraform.mk. So here in our make file, you see we are importing the terraform.mk make file, so all our targets are defined here, the targets for Terraform. So we need to first install our Terraform command. Here you see some logging. We make sure our bin directory is there with mkdir-p. Then we remove whatever Terraform binary is there. What's this bin directory? Let's check our variables. It's the current working directory /bin. So just to check quickly here, you see is this bin directory. And let's go back to our we lost with me. One moment. Let's open the preview. All right. So no, it's not all right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to terraform.mk. So we install our Terraform command, then we check that the version for the Terraform command, and this version is defined as a variable in our vars.mk. Then we're gonna invoke, well, let's start from this. Make tf install. Okay, we're downloading the zip file with the binary. Then we are unarchiving it, and then we're printing out the version. So terraform-v as a command here is printing version 1.0.9. All right, so now let's check what's in Terraform init. So as usual in Terraform, you have to invoke the Terraform init command, and this is gonna check our Terraform files. And for example, in our, so if we see here on the .tf subdirectory, we have a version.tf and vm.tf source code files. So in the version.tf, we are defining the version we're using for the provider for the UpCloud Terraform package. And then we are, well, here, if you want, you can specify the credentials as hard-coded values inside the Terraform file. But as we said before, we are actually using them, expecting them to be as environment variables in our environment. And then, so our Terraform init is going to download this provider source code with this version and is going to generate some log files that allow Terraform to track the changes for our infrastructure. So let's go ahead and do this. Make Terraform init. Okay, so this is the usual output from the Terraform command for any kind of a cloud environment you may find yourself using Terraform with. You see that we are generating the log file and just we're invoking the tree-a command to check what are the files that we created. And you see we have generated the log file, and then in the Terraform subdirectory we are storing the code for this UpCloud provider with this specific version. Okay, so now we're going to invoke Terraform plan to make sure that we are aware of what we're going to generate in the UpCloud environment, and then obviously we're going to apply this plan to actually create this virtual machine. So let's briefly check our vm.terraform file. This is where we define our virtual machine. So this is Terraform source code. You see we are defining the availability zone, the kind of hardware we want, the name for this virtual machine, the operating system we want in this virtual machine. And if you see here, if you see here, we are loading from the file system our public key for the SSH user for the root SSH user, and then the private key for the SSH user. So with these settings, we know we're going to be able to perform the SSH command to log into our remote virtual machine with the root user. All right, so let's invoke make Terraform plan, which is basically invoking the Terraform plan command, and see what's the output. Okay, you can see the usual output from the Terraform plan command. We're basically summarizing all the details, all the configuration details for the virtual machine we're going to create. This source code here. Okay, so let's invoke Terraform Apply, which as per makefile is basically the Terraform Apply command. So make Terraform Apply. Okay, so here it asks to type yes, because I didn't provide the auto approve parameter to the apply command. And here basically we see again the same output as per Terraform plan. So this is the infrastructure we're gonna create. Okay, let's type yes and invoke enter. This is gonna take around 20-30 seconds. And once the infrastructure is there, we're gonna be able to invoke our Python command, sorry, our Python script to inspect our infrastructure. So let's go through this code briefly. This is an import from the UpCloud SDK, Python SDK for UpCloud. And here you can see that we are loading from the environment the username and password for this script. This is coming from the Terraform code, is the name of our is the name of our server virtual machine. You see here the same host name, and we can inspect servers. So this is about authenticating to the UpCloud API. Then we retrieve the servers list and we print some basic information about these servers. This is the function that checks all the servers by hostname and returns the server that has our preferred hostname, which is the one we defined at the top here. And then basically once we find this server, we make sure this server is started, so the virtual machine is up and running. Just for reference, you can also shut down virtual machines via the Python SDK with this command. So let's go back to the README. We make sure our SDK is installed, and to do this we invoke make pip install, which is basically going to install all the requirements in our requirements file with this command. So let's do this, make pip install. I already installed all these packages, but basically you see here we are installing the Ansible package that we're going to see in another video, and then the UpCloud API package. Okay, so what about running this UpCloud inspect target that is going to invoke our Python file that we've seen here, and see what's the output. So make UpCloud inspect. Nothing happens. Oh, I know why. It's because probably so let's quickly change this to print, and let's run it again. All right, so this is something about configuring the logging details for Python. I didn't provide a default implementation, so we're not logging anything, but for the sake of this tutorial we just print things and it's gonna be fine. So here you can see that we are printing out a list of the current virtual machines running on our UpCloud account. And for example, you can see that we have an IP address that we're gonna need in a moment. So let's copy that. And what else? We found our virtual machine with the expected host name. We know this is started, so the virtual machine is up and running. So we can go on with the tutorial and try to perform the SSH connection to the virtual machine. Okay, so you've seen here in the output the IP address of our virtual machine that we just created with Terraform and inspected with the Python SDK for UpCloud. So we're going to export this environment variable, UpCloud IP equals this. And the reason we have to do this is because our so our virtual machine host makefile variable is basically taking the information from the UpCloud IP environment variable we exported, and this means that when we're going to SSH into our virtual machine with this command, we know the host, so the IP address. We know where to connect to. So first of all, let's make sure the permissions for the private and public key for the SSH connection is the expected one, so chmod 600. So make SSH fix permissions in case they're not correct, maybe because you clone this repository and permissions are different and stuff like that. Okay, you see we are listing the files. So here you can, sorry, not this user, but the root user. So here you can see the two private and public key. And now we're ready to SSH into our virtual machine as the root user. And this works because in our Terraform code, we defined the root user with the public key, and we also provided the private key here. Okay, so let's go back to this SSH target. So make SSH as root. This is in debug mode, but as you can see, we are logged into our virtual machine on UpCloud, and we are the root user. And we are logged into our home directory for the root user. And if we scroll up a bit, you see this is the command we are using. This is the IP address we exported a few moments ago. This is the private key we generated at the beginning of the tutorial. And so we successfully logged into our virtual machine running on UpCloud. So we can exit. All right, that's it for today. In a later video, we're gonna see how to create a new user for this virtual machine with Ansible. And later on, we're gonna see how we can destroy completely this infrastructure with Terraform and clean up all our files like the SSH keys, the state files for Terraform, and all of that. Happy DevOps coding to everyone, and I will catch you on the next one.